Brazilian midfielder Rodrigo Possebon did not suffer a broken leg after he was on the receiving end of a two-footed tackle from Middlesbrough defender Emmanuel Pogatetz last night. Roy Keane said last night was one of the worst nights of his life in football. With 5 minutes to go, Sunderland were 2-0 down against Northampton before a brace from Anthony Stokes took it to extra time. Sunderland won on penalties. Keane was booed by his own fans. Tonight, City are at Brighton in the second round of the Carling Cup. There's build-up and commentary here from 7, and we'll have live updates from Wigan's third-round tie at Ipswich.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Hayley Cavill.
It's a chilly morning, but you'll see some sunshine developing as the day goes on. Dry and bright for most of us today, although there may be a few clouds around. Top temperature of 17 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Well, what do you think? God blimey, Charlie O'Reilly. What a palaver! What a palaver! Did you hear Ruth Kelly yesterday? Did you? All right, you didn't, because you don't care about politics. Well, that's fair enough. Good morning, I'm Allan Beswick. How the hell are you? 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester, bbc.co.uk. And you can text on 07786 206 951. And I'm sorry we didn't take your phone calls yesterday, but it was the Labour Party conference in town, and we kind of have a duty to go. And frankly, I love politics, as you know. And so not only a duty, but for me, a pleasure. I know you're not meant to get pleasure from your job. Well, certainly not if you work in class. So, all right. But I did. And I enjoyed it, and I hope you felt informed. We spoke to local MP and Cabinet Minister Ruth Kelly about a variety of things, and I'm going to come on to the other one in a minute or two, perhaps. But I asked her, because there's been speculation about her not being there when the Cabinet or after the Cabinet reshuffle next time, and I said to her, are you going then? Are you going? Will you make it? Well, this was Ruth Kelly 24 hours, well, no, 21 and a half hours ago. Indeed, 20 and a half hours ago. Less than 24 hours ago. We spoke to her about 1:30, I think. So this is Ruth Kelly, yesterday, less than 24 hours ago. And in one sentence, because we don't have a great deal of time, and I think that's not it was just one sentence anyway. There's a lot of talk in the newspapers about you not being in government. You personally.
Well, I wouldn't believe anything that's said in the newspapers.
Would you not?
No, I never do, actually.
Why not? Do you not?
I never do.
Even when they say you're brilliant? Although I don't recall
I like to recall those phrases, obviously. No, I'm happy getting on with my job. I think now is the time to focus on the challenges in front of us. I think we're making a real difference in transport policy. I'll be setting out some of that tomorrow.
I'll be setting out some of that tomorrow. Now is the time to concentrate on the job. Transport policy. I'll be setting some of that out tomorrow. Less than 24 hours later.
To have been able to hold these jobs, I've relied on the support of my husband and my family. So I ask for your understanding when I say that I now owe it to my children and family to take a step back
and presumably stop focusing on the job. How very, very bizarre. Now, I'm one of those people who says that politicians, overwhelmingly, you can trust them. I like politicians. I believe Ruth Kelly, do the job because they care about their fellow being and all the rest of it. And they don't lie often. And I don't think she lied there. I asked her, was she going to be there next time? And she said, well, don't believe all you read in the papers. Well, that's not where I got the story from, but never mind, Ruth. I got it off your colleagues, actually, who said you were rubbish at the job and probably wouldn't survive. But then they've been saying that for years. Anyway, so that's where I got it from. And frankly, when I said, are you going to be there? She didn't say, yes, I am. She said, I don't think now's the time to discuss it, and what we should be doing is concentrating on the job. Well, make your own mind up. I have nothing more to offer than the facts as they present themselves. She also I think, dropped a bombshell yesterday as well about the congestion charge, which incidentally she is a very, very big fan of. She did tell us that the money that has been allocated by government over the next 10 years for what you might call congestion charge management, if you like, traffic management, congestion management over the next decade, that a substantial proportion of that money, I think she said 75%, but I could be wrong, a substantial proportion of that money has already been allocated to Manchester, which is fine, because Manchester's the only one that said they'd introduce a congestion charge. So, of the money that the government had made available, and you can row all day about whether more should be made available or even less, but of the money that the government have made available to improve public transport in inner cities, Manchester has got almost all of it, a huge chunk of it, providing they vote yes. We, the people of Greater Manchester, vote yes in the referendum. So I rather, just to see if I could get a shorter clip of the story rather than a dirty great long answer, said, well, OK then, how about, I mean, if we vote yes in the referendum, we get all that money. And she said, well, not quite. Not quite. No. If Greater Manchester says yes to the congestion charge, then submits its exact plan, then the government will decide whether Manchester does eventually get the money or not. So I said, does that mean that voting yes doesn't necessarily mean it will come in? And she said, well, I've already answered that. And I said, yeah, but I'd like a shorter answer. Could you tell me just yes or no? Is that what you're telling me? She said, well, I've already answered it. Yes, but is that what you're telling me? Because I'm not very clever. Is that what you're telling me? She wriggled, she squirmed, she wriggled, she squirmed. But she wasn't prepared to distill it to a yes or no answer. But she did say that if Manchester votes yes for the congestion charge, it is not inevitable that we'll then get the money. Who's lying to me?
One child in 4.
One child in 4 lives in poverty in the northwest.
Behind that grim statistic are stories you will find moving and even shocking.
There's a lot of families in Heywood that can't provide.
Everything costs so much. It's not the family's fault.
There's a lot of young people that just want a baby because they're cute.
Drugs and crime. People see it as a quick way out of poverty.
Why are so many children still living like this in our region in the 21st century?
One child in 4. The real stories of child poverty in Manchester. Tomorrow morning from 6 on BBC Radio Manchester. And online now at bbc.co.uk/Manchester.
I thought the government had set its target on doing away with child poverty. So that's just going to be a programme of silence, is it? Or is there actually some still there? Oh, very bizarre. 0161228 2255. Here's a story of... I'm sorry about the banging. If you can hear it, I can hear it, and it's very, very exciting. But whether you can hear it or not is another story entirely. 0161228 2255. If you want to join us today, feel free. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And you can text, of course, on 07786 206 951. You can talk about absolutely anything. We don't mind. We have no shame. Front page of the Manchester Evening News today has what I think is an interesting story, and it is this. Catholic school bans jabs against cervical cancer, or cervical if you prefer. A Catholic school will become the first in the country to block a project to vaccinate girls against cervical cancer. Governors at St Monica's High School in Bury, who've previously criticised the jab for encouraging sexual promiscuity, have decided they don't want their pupils to be vaccinated on school grounds. Now, obviously, they can't prevent parents themselves deciding that the schools will, the children will indeed be vaccinated. Now, the thing we have to first of all mention is that your chances of getting cervical cancer, well, if you're a bloke, they're pretty damn slim, to be honest. But if you're a woman or a female, your chances of getting cervical cancer as a virgin are extraordinarily slim. Extraordinarily slim. But once you have started to have a sex life, again, if that sex life is with one individual, one man, then again, the odds are extremely low. Promiscuity, however, increases the chances of you contracting. Well, I say promiscuity, that's a bit unfair, but more than one sexual partner increases the chances of cervical cancer quite considerably. And the idea is that this injection, no, not that injection, don't be like that. This injection can actually deal with the consequences before they arise, if you like. It's like a polio jab or any of those other things, and it can stop it before it starts, for want of a better term. But of course, if you teach that one ought not to sleep around, one ought to just have one sexual partner, and then when you're in love and when you're married in a Catholic church or whatever faith you follow, but on this case we're talking about Roman Catholics, the school, I kind of sympathise with their point of view. I don't like mass medication anyway. I hate all this idea of giving people chemicals, filling them with chemicals to prevent something from happening that might not happen. Do you know what I mean? I kind of have a discomfort about that anyway, but notwithstanding, you've got to applaud the school, haven't you, who say, actually, we teach the children at our school, the girls at our school, to keep their knickers on and their legs together. And frankly, that's better than any injection in the world. Huh? Well, there you go. 0161 228 2255. Brian accuses me via email of being extraordinarily naive. Alan, how naive of you, he says. I'll bet when you were talking to Ruth Kelly, her lips were moving. That should have been a clue that you weren't being told the whole truth. Oh, very good, thank you. 0161 228 2255. Alan, one interview with you, and she walks. Will you be speaking to Gordon? That's Dave in Tottington. Well, there's the thing, isn't it? Who do you think I should interview today? Obviously, we're having trouble getting anybody. I'm not being interviewed by him. It's like resigning. Well, it isn't. I never caused it. I just get the credit. 016... Or the blame, if you're that way inclined. 0161 228 2255. Interestingly, I was speaking yesterday after the leader's speech. I was speaking to one of the MPs that are about... I spoke to about 10 MPs after the great leader spoke. And a couple of them were members of the fraternity who were prepared to say what they think, and that is that Brown should go. And I asked them, well, if Brown goes, who do you get in his stead? And one of them said, well, that's the flaw in our argument, really. That's the difficulty. But if there was an election, if there was a leadership challenge, you would be surprised at the people who would come forward. And it is rarely the favourite that gets the job. Rarely the favourite that gets the job. Except, of course, in the election last year when Brown was the favourite and got the job. But on that occasion, he wasn't only the favourite, he was the only candidate. So that does enhance his chances by quite a large margin, doesn't it, really? But I mention it because the Labour Party there is an attempt going on within the Labour Party to change the party rules to reduce the number of MPs required to nominate a leadership candidate. Now, unfortunately, for those who wanted it to happen, it fell at the conference hurdle, a card vote at the party's annual conference, throughout the proposal to cut the threshold from 12.5% to 7.5%. The change would have reduced the number of MPs needed to nominate a leadership candidate from 45 to 27 when there was a vacancy for the leader or the deputy leader. The National Executive Committee, who make all the rules apparently, had opposed the ruling and won the day on this occasion. So there you are. Well, I've had enough of talking about the Labour Party now, frankly. They've done out for me. They've make your own judgment as whether they've done out for you. But they're gone now. They'll finish round about a couple of hours' time. Then it's all over. They'll pack up their bags, disappear. And I don't know whether we'll see them in 2 years' time. I've no idea. But they do appear to have enjoyed the conference immensely. After his speech yesterday, has your opinion of Gordon Brown changed at all? And what about that? I rather like one bit that he said, Well, there were two bits that I enjoyed. The first one was I don't intend to use my family, rather suggesting that David Cameron uses his. And then you suddenly realise that he was introduced onto the panel, onto the stage, by a little chunky woman who he's married to. In other words, I don't intend to use my family for my political career, and, oh, Sarah, why are you doing it tomorrow afternoon? Could you introduce me, please, and can we have a snog on stage? So what are we to deduce from that? Either he's lying, or he doesn't understand that his wife is part of his family. It's 12:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Mark Edwardson.
Almost 3 dozen black cabs have been taken off Manchester's streets as a precaution after a number of spontaneous vehicle fires in London. The Transport Secretary and Bolton West MP Ruth Kelly, who's leaving the Cabinet at the next reshuffle, has told Labour's conference in Manchester she's stepping down because she owes it to her family. And police in Salford are hunting 2 youths who beat a pair of deer to death in Swinton. Manchester's weather, you can expect it to be mainly dry with some sunshine and top temperatures of 17 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Let's take a look firstly to traffic cameras on the M62. All seems to be moving fairly well between junction 18, Sinister Island, through to 22 Rishworth Moor. I've just heard, though, that there's been an accident on the M6 southbound. News just coming in now that the inside lane of the 3 is closed off, apparently, between 20 at the Lim interchange and 19 at Knutsford. It's on the southbound, so please do take care. The inside lane of the 3 shut to traffic, so do expect delays if that's the way you're heading. And in Little Halton, Old Lane's closed in both directions, whilst that oil's cleared of the carriageway between Cleggs Lane and Hope Hay Lane. So again, expect delays locally. Don't forget though, if you can update me further, call in. The number to dial 01612 244 4951. I'm Carla Banks.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
0161228 2255. Sid in Earlham at Thaites. Hiya, Sid.
Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, sir.
I wonder whether I could ask your advice. This morning I've received a letter addressed to my wife, and she died very nearly 2 years ago, and it's regarding a cover plan for a digital receiver, which we've never had in our lives. And one thing that on the return address on the envelope is an address in Openshaw, Manchester, and yet when I read the small print on the very professional product support agreement, it's the address to return it to is in Sheffield, and they just put me for. It says that my support agreement expired on the 20th of October 2008. Well, we've never had anything like that.
Well, the best... It depends what you want to do, really, but the best advice is to ignore it and forget it.
I see.
The downside of that is that you might get another such letter in a fortnight's time, in a month's time, or in a year's time. You might.
Well,
their records are either wrong or someone bought whatever the gadget was, but bought a gadget in your wife's name all that time ago, 2 years ago.
It doesn't say 2 years ago. It's just saying that it's the support agreement, expired now.
Yeah, well, the support agreement. Usually, what happens with a support agreement is you buy the equipment and you have the manufacturer's guarantee. I mean, this is nonsense, but this is how they operate it. You have the manufacturer's and retailer's guarantee for a year.
Well, I know this, Alan, that my wife, she's never engaged in anything like that.
No, I didn't say she had. What I actually said, Sid, was somebody might have bought these goods using your wife's name and address.
Yes, but it does indicate. I don't want to speak of the name of the company.
It's okay.
But it does indicate a company which I have not anything to do with.
No, indeed, I'm aware of that, which is why I said that somebody 2 years ago, bought something, and for reasons known only to them, gave your wife's name and address. And what then happens is they use the goods for 12 months, and then when they bought the goods, they purchased, it would appear, they purchased a support service agreement, which expired, or will expire, in October. And the company are now writing to the name they have on their file, saying, look, your agreement's about to expire, do you want another? Now, either they've made a mistake and somehow got your wife's details mixed up with somebody else's, or the person buying the goods in the first place decided to give your wife's name and address, which is most unlikely. There is an administrative error here. The problem is, what you want from me is the advice on what to do with it. Well, what to do with it is, frankly, nothing.
I see.
They're asking you, do you want something?
Well, they're asking me for a certain amount of money.
Well, they're asking you if you want something. They're not saying, give us this money. They're saying, would you like to buy this?
Yes.
Right, well, the answer to the question, would you like to buy it, I've already worked out for myself, is no, I wouldn't like to buy it.
No.
Now, you can write back and say, my wife never bought these goods off you, and anyway, she died 2 years ago, blah, 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 and that might stop it. There again, it might just be that the computer sends out this thing to the wrong address, to the wrong name, and will continue to do so anyway. So what I'm saying to you is, my advice would be just to leave well alone and just don't bother, because frankly, it's more trouble than it's worth. They're not trying to take money off you, they're trying to sell you something.
And I'm wondering myself whether else they've got hold of, well, it's addressed to my wife.
Yeah, you told me that, and the answer I gave you was an error.
But the thing is that I can't imagine anybody in my immediate family or any of my friends. I've never had anything bought.
No, well, let me offer you another thought then. Can you imagine a computer making a mistake?
Yes.
Well, that's probably what's happened.
Oh, I see, Alan.
That's probably what's happened. I don't know, but that's probably.
I'm wondering if it's not something wrong with this, and certain people that might take it and send them the money, and they've nothing at all.
Well, it's very unlikely. I mean, if they wrote to me and said, Alan, would you like to buy a guarantee for your Jaguar? I'd have a look in the garage and see if I've got one. And if I've got one, I think, well, I might. But if I haven't got one, then I think, well, actually, I haven't got a Jaguar. I don't need an extended warranty for it. The same would apply to my fridge. If they said, would you like an extended warranty for your fridge? Frankly, my answer on extended warranties is always no. But before I said yes, I'd make damn sure I had a fridge at least.
I see.
So if they write to people, let's say I got the letter addressed to Mrs. Beswick.
Yeah.
And it said, would you like to renew your agreement on your fridge? Well, I'd think, well, I haven't actually got an agreement on my fridge. It's not running out because I've never had one. So they're asking you to renew something. Even the thickest of consumers, even some absolute idiot, when he gets that letter and says, would you like to renew the guarantee on your fridge, who hasn't got a guarantee on his fridge would think, probably not.
I see.
Yeah? So I think what I'm saying to you is don't worry.
I see. So I'll just ignore it.
That's what I would say. Now, what I do tell you is that, because I'm sure that must be distressing, because you lost your wife 2 years ago, it's got to be distressing to receive a letter addressed to her. And the chances are that you'll receive another, because this, whatever it is, whoever it is that they've mistakenly been providing this cover to, whoever it is not going to renew it because they won't get the letter, you're getting it. And because the computer won't have a yes answer, it'll send out another letter at the time the thing runs out. And for the next month or so, you're going to get the odd letter from that computer asking you if you want to renew it.
And so I'll keep on ignoring them.
Keep on ignoring them, yes.
I see.
You won't suffer any loss.
I see.
All right, but I mean, if I thought writing to the firm and saying, stop sending me these would work, frankly, I don't think it would work. I don't think it would stop them.
No, I see. Well, thanks very, very much
All right.
for your help, Alan. And
cheers.
Thanks again.
Don't worry about it.
I will, thank
Good
you.
on you, mate. Neil in Bebbington says it's more than likely that when they registered the Digibox with the guy's wife's details, they did so in order to avoid buying a television licence. Can you see that? Because when you buy telecommunication equipment these days, they ask you for your name and address because they have to do the whole thing, don't they? 01612282255. Howard in Hyde says Gordon Brown said children, not family, perhaps suggesting adults such as his wife have a choice in the participation of press events, whereas children often do not and are therefore mere props. I accept that. He seemed to enjoy the programme yesterday, which is a bit worrying. And Gordon says you could get Mr. Bean to replace Mr. Brown, as they're both plonkers and nothing would change. Besides, he was never elected to lead this country. Well, no, he wasn't, but then neither was Tony Blair. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. Margaret Thatcher was never elected to lead this country. In the past 100 years... No, that's overstating it, because I can only guarantee it for 60. But since the Second World War, no politician has ever been elected by the public to lead this country. None. Gordon Brown wasn't. William Hague wasn't. Margaret Thatcher wasn't. Harold Wilson wasn't. Ted Heath wasn't. None. Not one. No politician or other has ever been elected since the Second World War, and I think ever, but has ever been elected by the public to lead this nation politically. None. None ever. So Brown isn't the odd one out in that respect. It's the nature of our constitution that says no. 0161 228 2255. John in Bury says, I was pleased to hear that a Bury Catholic school is making a strong religious stand in refusing to allow girls to be vaccinated against cervical cancer on their premises. Now, any shameless hussy who went to that school and has sex with a couple of men in the future can look forward to a good chance of dying a nasty, painful death. Well done. It's amazing what people will do to others in the name of some fairy tale bearded one floating around in the sky. Well, yes, but just because they're misguided and actually believe there's a God, at least, what they're doing is standing by their somewhat bizarre beliefs. At least they're saying, well, this is what we believe. We believe that the girls who come to our school, and all other girls for that matter, should keep their legs together and their knickers on. And they won't get cervical cancer. They don't need to be pumped full of drugs. All they have to do is make sure they don't get pumped, if you'll pardon the expression. That's it in a nutshell. They don't need, if you avoid the multiple willy, the chances of getting cervical cancer are very, very slim indeed. More than one willy, and up go the odds. A couple of dozen woolies, and it's almost guaranteed. So you're fine. There we go again, another bank. So once again, I say that the school at least is sticking to its principles, and that is stick with one bloke, and they apply the same rule to men as well. Stick with one woman, and you'll be fine. Thank you very much. Teddy Mostyn says, did they sing Tomorrow Belongs to Me from Cabaret at the end of the Labour Party conference yesterday? Well, no, I wasn't there at the end of the conference yesterday, and of course the conference wasn't over. There's more of it today, so no is the simple answer. I do not know whether they did. My guess, frankly, is that no, they didn't. That's my guess. But it is, I'll grant you, only a guess. But you tell me. We'll all watch it today. I don't know whether they'll have the audacity to sing the red flag. I suspect not, given that they're a long, long way from flying it. How extraordinary. Gordon Brown has lost a cabinet minister but won't comment on reports that Ruth Kelly's departure could spark a walkout from other ministers. Ruth Kelly has 4 children and the Prime Minister insists that she's leaving the government for family reasons. Although it would appear that she only discovered after 2 o'clock yesterday that she's got 4 children. She didn't realise till then because she wasn't for resigning at 2 o'clock yesterday. Well, as far as I understand it anyway. Who am I relying on? Well, actually, her 01612282255, Albert and Lee says, we can now see who wears the trousers in the Brown household. Although at the time she was on the stage yesterday, snogging the ugly one, she was in fact wearing a frock. I seem to recall. So there you are. 01612282255. If you've something to say, do feel free. It's all free, gratis and for now today. The police band, again according to the Manchester Evening News, the police band, they have a brass band, costs you and me, the council taxpayers of Manchester, costs £200,000. You get the bloody Rolling Stones for that. A police chief has defended the spending of £200,000 on taxpayers' money on his force's brass band. Now, given the number of bands we've got at the BBC, I think I have to be careful how I tread here, but the police chief, a police chief, not the big cheese, but a police chief, Assistant Chief Constable Rob Taylor, said the band has an important role in promoting the force. A police chief said the band costs £200,000. Now, to be fair, that's over 9 years. Do you think the Greater Manchester Police should be spending £20,000 a year, price of half a copper, £20,000 a year on a band? 01612282255. Gary in Wigan, how are you doing, Gary?
Hello, I'm not bad, Alan. How are you?
Can I break some news to you?
Go on.
A story that will be in your papers tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is that Wigan is joint bottom with 2 other towns in the UK for being covered in litter.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I think it's you.
I'm not one of them. I'm afraid not.
Is it not? Is it not you?
It's not me.
I thought it was you scattering bus tickets and pie wrappers. Anyway, what have you got, Gary?
Well, I pointed at it's trying to find a bin as well.
Well, yeah, there's not many about. Go on anyway, mate, go on.
Right. It's a quick call about... I watched a programme the other day on TV, and I'm not saying what name it is or which channel it was on. You might have seen it. It was about this... it was about property and the credit crunch, etc.
Okay.
And there was this lady on who was 73, Parkinson's disease, and they reported about this company who approached her and said, would you like a lump of cash? We'll take your house off you. We charge your rent, and there you go. You can go on holiday, etc. Because with her conditions, it looked like she had, not long to live, quite frankly. Yeah. Anyway, so they went across with a deal, and she was promised £22,500 in cash. Mm-hmm. She didn't read the small print. A rent went from £170 to £460 a month, and the £22,500 she was supposed to get is in 10 years' time. So she went in arrears and they took the house off her.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering why there's no law for something like that. I know the solicitor's involved and you've not read the small print tough, but surely common sense prevails here, and something for someone of that age, a lot of old women do a lot of daft things because of the mail that comes through. They think they've won money and they send money off and etc. I don't know.
I'm intrigued by one thing, first of all, and it may have been a slip of the tongue, but you said her rent went up. But
sorry, she had a mortgage, she had a very, very small mortgage.
Okay, I understand now. That's fine. That explains everything. That's fine. Yeah, it's called equity release. The schemes have been around for a very long time. I can remember in the 70s when I was working at the Citizens Advice Bureau, late 70s, early 80s, I think it was, that these schemes sort of came into being for the ordinary people, you, me and other people who were paying mortgages to buy their houses. Yeah. And the Citizens Advice Bureau at that time, long time ago, recommended that you get very, very good and thorough legal advice before entering into one. One of the... I'm just looking for it now, because I was reading one of the newspapers this morning, and there's a whole article in their housing section. I didn't make a note of it, so I can't find it straight away. But it said, is it time to sell your house and rent it back? And I can't remember which newspaper I saw it in, but these have been knocking about for a very good time. But you do have to be extraordinarily careful, because some of them will give you cash immediately. Some of them effectively lend you money against the equity. Some of them take a percentage of the property and they own the house at the end, no matter how much you've paid back and all the rest of it. They are very, very complicated.
Well, if this was you know, been around for quite a long time, I'm just wondering why the programme didn't name the company, because it's obviously, in their eyes, doing her a favour, but waiting 10 years before you get any money and in a condition, they knew damn well she was going to pop it. And the house would be hers, theirs, etc.
But the money that was due in 10 years may well still be due. It may well still... So the old lady dies, but that money is part of her estate.
Well, she was kicked out, you see, because the amount of rent she had to pay.
Well, if she was kicked out because the amount went up, her mortgage went up, because what she effectively did was take out a new... It's the MEN, I was looking for it. I said I'd seen it in a newspaper today, and it's the MEN that I've seen it in. Yeah, there it is. See our home supplement. Time to sell your home and rent it back is the question, and it's in the home supplement of the Manchester Evening News today. So it's been around a long time as this, and you do, whenever you do anything with your house in terms of parting with it, or indeed parting with part of it, you need good legal advice.
Well, she did get good legal advice, but unfortunately it was with the company who's doing the deal.
Well, yeah, but you should get your own. It's always the way. You should get your own.
I don't know where he stands legally. Is he not obliged to give her every detail on that small print and say, you do know you're not getting paid for 10 years?
He is probably obliged to say that, but she's almost certainly signed a document that he did say that.
Yeah, did he miss the programme?
I didn't see the programme, but I've been looking at equity release now for, as I say, 30 years.
Right, it seems like it's going back to the 60s, everyone's renting again.
Yeah, absolutely so. Good on you, Gary, thank you very much indeed. 01612282255, just to reiterate that, frankly, if ever you're considering equity release. I read one article over the weekend, I think it was in the Observer, but one article said equity release should only ever be a last resort. Just gone 20 to 1 on BBC Radio. Well, quite a long way past 20 to 1, to be honest. With the news headlines, Mark Edwardson.
35 black cabs have been taken off the streets of Manchester over fears they might spontaneously catch fire. Ministers have been paying compliments to Ruth Kelly, the Bolton West MP, who's confirmed she's resigning as Transport Secretary. And Manchester has again been named as the UK's most business-friendly city outside London in a prestigious economic survey. Manchester's weather, you can expect sunny spells this afternoon. It'll be mainly dry with highs of 17 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
M6 traffic still slowing down because one lane's closed off owing to a collision that's happened between junction 20 at Lymm and 19 at Knutsford, and it's the inside lane of the 3 that's closed to traffic. Any further updates you have for me, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester, sports with Mark Elliott.
Well, the wickets have been tumbling on the opening morning of Lancashire's crucial county championship match against Somerset at Taunton. Lancs need 7 points to avoid relegation from the top tier, and they've made a good start. Chris Malaband is there.
They've already banked their first point in this match, and they're on the cusp of their second, because at lunch, Somerset are 94 for 5, having been asked to bat by Stuart Law on a real green top here at Taunton. Peter Trigo unbeaten on 18 and Craig Keysvetter on 8. But it's been Lancashire's morning and no mistake. Their seam bowlers carrying on where they left off at Liverpool. Newby with 2 wickets, Smith with 2, and the other one for Glen Chappell, as Somerset wickets have fallen regularly. Trescothick went early for North and Langer for 8. The big 2 out with only 20 on the board. Hildreth followed for 4. De Brain for 39, well taken by Horton at slip-off Smith. And then Ian Blackwell was the 5th and final wicket to go in the morning session, caught and bowled by Tom Smith for 16. Difficult to know how good a score Somerset will need to accumulate here. On such a green wicket, 94 for 5 might not be a bad effort. We'll wait with interest to see how Lancashire fare. Lunch though, and it's been Lancashire's morning. Somerset 98 for 5.
And you can hear updates from Chris throughout the afternoon here on BBC Radio Manchester. And if you want ball-by-ball commentary, you can get that online at bbc.co.uk/Manchester. Somerset are, of course, in with a chance of winning the county championship title themselves. Nottinghamshire, though, are in pole position. They need to win and have reduced Hampshire to 83 for 4 at lunch at Trent Bridge. Durham are also in with a shout at the championship. They put Kent in at Canterbury. At lunch, Kent are 81 for 2. Well, there's some relief for Manchester United this lunchtime with the news that teenager Rodrigo Posibon didn't suffer a broken leg in last night's 3-1 Carling Cup win over Middlesbrough at Old Trafford. Alex Ferguson was furious at the challenge by Borough's Emmanuel Pogatetz, saying he never wanted to see anything like it again. On the positive side, Cristiano Ronaldo was back in the goals, which pleased assistant manager Mike Phelan.
We're gradually putting him into each game and he's getting a little bit longer and longer, so all being well, he's near to full throttle, you know, and we'll get 90 minutes out of him as soon as we can.
And a goal, he's only got another 42 and he beat it last season.
Yeah, we said that to him when he came off, you know, that he's one down, 42 to go, and he's got another record, so he rises to those sorts of challenges, and I'm sure he'll be looking forward to his next game.
Mark Hughes says he has no concerns that Manchester City's new owners will want to appoint a football director. The Abu Dhabi United group completed their takeover of the Blues yesterday, but Hughes has been assured that all matters on the field will be conducted by him.
No. No, I mean, it's... No, I can't say any more. I think if you read the rest of the piece, which you obviously have done, I think he made it clear that any football decision will be made by myself. So I think that's clear to him.
Meanwhile, Hughes takes his City side to Brighton for tonight's second-round tie in the Carling Cup. You can hear all the build-up and commentary in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7. And there'll be live reports from Wigan's trip to Ipswich in the third round. It's set to be a family affair at Portman Road, with Wigan manager Steve Bruce coming up against his son, who plays for Ipswich. Alex Bruce admits his dad never stops talking about Wigan.
He talks about them, obviously. He's always waffling on about them, but it's going to be a difficult game. Obviously, they've got a lot of good players, but hopefully we can put in a good performance like what we're capable of at Portman Road and get results.
Well, elsewhere, Roy Keane said that last night was one of the worst nights of his life in football. His Sunderland side narrowly escaped defeat to League One Northampton Town. With 5 minutes to go, Sunderland were 2-0 down before a brace from Anthony Stokes took the game to extra time, and Sunderland won on penalties. Keane was booed by his own fans and felt that his lineup had let him down. Michael Owens admitted that Kevin Keegan's departure from St James's Park has set Newcastle United back, but says it's now time to move on from their recent problems. The Newcastle captain says he doesn't want everyone to fall back on excuses, and added that it's up to everyone in the club to find an extra 5 or 10%. Reports suggest that the 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong will join Team Astana for his competitive comeback and will begin racing again next year in Australia. He'll announce full details about his return this afternoon. And in rugby union, Australia could play New Zealand at Twickenham. The Australian Rugby Union's confirmed they're looking at plans to stage matches outside Oceania. The Wallabies are already due to play the All Blacks in Hong Kong in November.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
There's cricket reports throughout the afternoon, Lancashire's crucial game against Somerset, and then tonight it's City against Brighton in the second round of the Carling Cup.
BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. How are you? Excellent. 0161 228 2255. If you want to join us, that's absolutely fine. Just pick up your phone and do it, really. Do precisely that, yeah. Or Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and you can text on 07786 206 951. Alan, like you, I love politics. So can you answer this, please, regarding BBC policy? Yesterday, on the BBC's Daily Politics show, during their coverage of the Labour Party conference, Andrew Neil said that it was not BBC policy to broadcast the Labour Party promotional videos, which are shown to the conference. Accordingly, the cameras returned to the studio during its showing. On BBC Parliament's coverage of the conference, however, the same videos are broadcast. Do you know why? No, is the simple answer. I have absolutely no idea why. I can only presume that because the coverage of the conference is edited coverage, the BBC, and that's not to say it isn't live, but it is controlled, because at some point somebody adds up the minutes and somebody adds up all the other stuff. It has to be balanced in some way. Whereas the Parliament's coverage, BBC Parliament's coverage, that's a live feed. That's just a continuous live feed of events involving usually within the House. And I suspect you'll get that live feed for the Conservatives, and I suspect you got it for the Liberal Democrats also. I only watch BBC Parliament when Parliament is sitting, and I don't know the policy. So, sorry, no, I can't tell you. But I suspect the stab I just had at it is not far from correct. But it's a process of deduction rather than revealing some knowledge. Because as many people have observed over the years, I don't have much of that to go at. And Bill says, what was that I heard in the news summary just then? Several black cats have been taken off the streets because they might catch fire. No, Bill, not black cats. Black cabs. Taxis, you barn pot. Yeah, but apparently taxis have decided, not very often, but once is plenty, to self-combust. You're just driving along at 80 pence a minute or whatever it is, and it catches fire and you all have to run for it. It's only happened in London. And in London, there's about 500 taxis taken off the road by the authorities because of this propensity, this very, very low-risk propensity of the black cab to burst into flames. And as a precaution, they've had a look at it in Manchester, and in Manchester they've decided, well, all right, we'd better take a few off as well. So they've taken some off. So that's it. So it's nothing to do with cats. It's to do with black cabs. All right. Do try to keep up. 0161 228 2255. Albert, this Labour Party, Albert in Lee, this Labour Party has sunk, he says, to a new low. Tony Benn said his efforts to secure a spot on the podium at the party conference had been rebuffed. Are they frightened of what he might say? I've far more respect for Tony Benn than these cretins running the Labour Party. Well, why should Tony Benn get a seat or even get the opportunity to speak? He's just another backbencher. Tony Benn, now it's up to him. In fact, he's not even a backbencher. So I'm afraid if you want to be up there on the podium, then you've got to earn your stripes. And Tony Benn is just another yesterday's man as far as the party's concerned, so why should he? You can have a great deal of sympathy and respect for Tony Benn, you can recognise his views and all the rest of it, but he's yesterday's man. And he's a goner. So I'm not altogether sure that there's anything sinister in not letting him have his say. Why should they? Wigan is joint bottom in the UK for street litter, says Neil. I thought all that stuff on the streets of Wigan was some form of local street art. It is ironic, isn't it, that the Tidy Britain group have released a statement saying that more than half of England's councils aren't keeping their streets free of litter, according to Keep Britain Tidy. They carried out a survey on environmental issues such as litter and graffiti in every district council area in England over 2 years. Only one council, Kennet and Wiltshire, was considered to have a good standard of hygiene by those particular measures, and the 3 worst performing councils which were labelled poor are Sandwell in the West Midlands, Knowsley in Liverpool, and Wigan. Wigan comes bottom. Now, my question for today is, where is the Keep Britain Tidy group based? Answer? Well, by an amazing coincidence, Wigan.
Andy Crane, live at the Lowry.
This Labour Party conference, is it of any interest to you, or is it just a nuisance that means you can't get through town because of all the road closures?
Pretty much, yeah, it's a bit of a nuisance.
I mean, there's police everywhere. If you live on the outskirts of Manchester and your house is getting robbed, I'm sure the response time has probably gone up.
Music, politics and comedy.
My eldest daughter's 20. She doesn't understand anything about politics. It's like the X-Factor generation. If we took a turn voting in this country to the red button and then Mr. Brown, he'd have to do a conjuring trick or something and people go, I really like him. He's
I
good.
completely agree, and this
Some would
is
say he
what...
already has to do country trips.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Your Sunday lunchtime mix, live at the Lowry with Andy Crane.
That's a broad brief you have there.
Sunday from noon.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Yeah, very good day.
Talking sense every lunchtime. Allan Beswick and you.
BBC Radio Manchester.
I found that bit in the evening news about equity release and, well, it's called lease back, isn't it? But it's the same thing. And there's a whole article here, and even they say, it's the advice, it's the universal advice, and that is that you must get proper advice. Adam Sampson, the chief executive of Shelter, has been quoted, and he says he's got reservations about the whole system of rent back and accuses some firms of making false claims to often desperate people. He said, unfortunately, rather than solving people's problems, some sale and leaseback companies are ripping off already vulnerable house owners by encouraging them to sign up for a deal, which is plainly a very bad deal. Even worse, some companies are making false promises about allowing people to remain in their home for life, and then a few months later selling the home, leaving the former owners homeless. These companies are currently unregulated but advertise in local and national media. There are no checks as to whether the advice given to customers is in their best interests or the best way of resolving problems. That's why Shelter supports the recently announced National Mortgage Rescue Scheme, which will allow councils and housing associations to assist struggling homeowners by buying their homes and renting it back to them. But it does say, do seek expert advice, and some of that advice is free, and they give a telephone number for Shelter, but the Citizens Advice Bureau and others also give advice. But if you are considering a sale and lease back deal on your home because some bloke knocked on the door or you're answering an advertisement in the newspapers, then don't take his or her word for granted. Without any doubt at all, you must get proper advice. And that doesn't necessarily mean paying a lawyer a shed full of money, because if you're looking at that as an option, then the chances are you haven't got a lot of money to pay to a lawyer. But there are agencies that will advise you about the deal itself and whether it's the right thing for you, whether it's what you need. Also, of course, those same agencies may well be able to come up with alternatives that are more suitable to your particular needs and won't cost you an arm, a leg, and possibly even more. 0161 228 2255. Has anybody got or used an equity release scheme? Have you done it? Have you got an equity release? How's it been for you? Because, as I say, you know, they are one of the options available to people who have a lot of equity. Now, that usually means rather older than younger people. If you've got a house that you still owe £5,000 on, but it's worth 100 grand, and you don't want to move house, then clearly there is, on the face of it at least, £95,000 worth of equity tied up in your house, and it is possible to get a sensible deal whereby you get some of that equity, maybe £20,000 worth, in terms of, and you possibly have to pay £2,000 or £3,000 for it over the years. So you end up with the equity in your house. Your house is worth less to you. It's still worth the same in every other terms, but it's worth less to you because somebody else owns a chunk of it. But you can get deals where you can get that money, live in the house forever, legitimately live in the house forever, and the money will only be paid off when the house changes hands. In other words, when it's sold on your death, or if you decide to sell it yourself. But get advice. They can work, but get advice. Have you got one? How did it work for you? What was the process? I'd love to know.
Join me, Becky Want, today from 2, live from the Smithfield Hotel and Bar in Manchester City Centre, where we'll be learning to make a home brew, amongst other things.
That'll take a couple of hours on it, making home brew. Listen, do you think the police band is worth 200,000 quid? It's a lot of brass. Oh, you see what I did there? Brilliant, that's brilliant.
95.1 FM.
DAB digital radio.
And the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, dozens of Manchester's black cabs are off the road amid fears of spontaneous fires. And Ruth Kelly gets a standing ovation after explaining why she's leaving government.
Lancashire have made a good start in their crucial last county championship match of the season.
Well, this afternoon is going to be mostly dry with some sunny spells and top temperatures of 17 Celsius.
And traffic still slow because of an earlier accident on the M6 southbound between 20 at Lymm and 19 at Knutsford, but thankfully the inside lane of the 3 has been reopened.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Edwardson. 35 black cabs have been taken off the streets of Manchester over fears they might spontaneously catch fire. 8 taxis have caught fire in London since the summer and 500 are now off the road in the capital. The manufacturer, LTI, is trying to find out what's causing the blazes. George Sims from the Taxi Owners Association in Manchester says it means about 70 of your cabbies are now out of work.
In Manchester, nothing's happened. Nothing's not happened here, but in London they've had a series of things suddenly catching fire under the bonnet for as yet unknown reason. Taxis have 2 drivers on, so there's probably something like 70 people going to lose their income until this thing's sorted.
The Transport Secretary and Bolton West MP Ruth Kelly's been given a standing ovation at the Labour conference in Manchester for a speech in which she explained why she was leaving government. She said her decision was not taken lightly, but it was time to start putting her family first. There's been some speculation she's unhappy with some of Gordon Brown's policies, but she said that wasn't the case and she made her choice to be closer to a young family.
To have been able to hold these jobs, I've relied on the support of my husband and my family. So I ask for your understanding when I say that I now owe it to my children and family to take a step back and to start putting them first. If I do not, then I know that that is something that I will come to regret deeply.
Our courts heard how a man living in Manchester who was an important member of Al-Qaeda had terrorist contacts book. 33-year-old Rangzieb Ahmed from Fallowfield and 2 other people are facing a number of terror-related charges in a trial at Manchester Crown Court. They deny all the charges against them. A Roman Catholic school in Bury's banned pupils from receiving the new vaccine against cervical cancer on its premises. Governors at St Monica's High School in Prestwich say it would be inappropriate. Some Christian groups have criticised the new vaccinations for encouraging sexual promiscuity. Unimaginably cruel, that's how the RSPCA's describe youths who beat 2 deer to death in Swinton. Now they want your help to catch the yobs. It happened on Friday. Did you see 2 teenagers in hoods and tracksuits seen punching, kicking and stamping on the deer on Cliveley Avenue in Swinton? Inspectors say the animal's injuries suggest they've been hunted with dogs before being killed. Inspector Natalie Avery is from the RSPCA.
It's something that's becoming more common, I think. I don't know whether people just have realised that they can call into us about these things. Didn't previously, but we do seem to be getting more calls suggesting quite nasty incidents. It's extremely worrying. You don't want to be seeing this sort of thing day in and day out.
Manchester has again been named as the UK's most business-friendly city outside London in a prestigious economic survey. It's beaten Birmingham for the 2nd year running on factors like staff resources, office accommodation and quality of life. Tony Bray is from the report authors Cushman and Wakefield.
It's to do with the access to the qualified staff, the size of the market, international locations, the quality of life for those residents there, and the financial offer and ability to attract those national and international occupiers.
And Greater Manchester Police is defending spending £200,000 worth of taxpayers' money on the Force brass band. It was spent over the past 9 years, but Greater Manchester Police say the band's a very valuable asset, supporting a wide variety of community events.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Mark Elliott.
The last round of matches are well underway in cricket's county championship, with the title and 1 relegation place still to be decided. Lancashire have reduced Somerset to 94 for 5 at lunch at Taunton, still needing points to stay in Division 1. Championship favourites Nottinghamshire are at Hampshire. The hosts are 83 for 4. And Durham, who could still win it, have Kent at 81 for 2 at Canterbury. The Manchester United midfielder Rodrigo Posibon didn't have his leg broken in the 3-1 Carling Cup win over Middlesbrough last night, despite fears of a fracture. Roy Keane, though, said it was his worst night in football. His Sunderland side beat Northampton on penalties after being 2-0 down with 5 minutes to go. Tonight, City are at Brighton and Wigan are at Ipswich. You can hear live coverage of both from 7. Michael Owens admitted Kevin Keegan's departure from St James's Park set Newcastle United back, but he says it's now the time to move on from recent problems. And finally, reports suggest the 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong will join Team Astana for his competitive comeback and will begin racing again next year in Australia.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, we're in for another settled afternoon. There is quite a bit of cloud around, but that cloud is going to break, and we will see 1 or 2 sunny spells developing as we go through this afternoon. Top temperatures today, 17 Celsius.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Gary's done some sums, and he says, Alan, the lady whose house was purchased and then rented back to her, she would pay £460 the rent, times 12 months, times 10 years. That equals £55,800. I'd say she's been ripped off. Because, of course, she was only getting 10 grand. But did she keep the equity? These are the things. That's why it's more complicated than a straightforward arithmetic job. Anyway, 0161228 2255. There's something you want to say. John in Wigan. Hiya, John.
Afternoon, Alan.
What
I just want to say that I rang one of the big companies who do equity release.
Yeah.
The free phone number. And had a brief conversation. And the lady said that it's 6% interest you pay on the money they give you.
Mm.
And I said, well, if my house depreciates, you still want, well, yes, you still want over 6% a year.
Oh, yeah.
So, obviously the phone went down.
Well, I mean, there are a variety of schemes, and you've been told one of them where you get the money from the equity and you then, for want of a better term, have a charge of 6%.
A year.
Yeah, per annum. So you can, there are a number of ways of paying that. One way can be to simply pay it. You just pay the 6% and forever until you pay off the loan, which you'll do when you sell the house, or indeed when...
House would almost certainly become theirs, wouldn't it, in a few years' time at 6% a year?
Well, it depends on whether you pay it or not.
No, if you didn't pay it, though.
Well, if you didn't pay it, then the house would become theirs after a number of years. But if you look at the past decade, house prices have gone up more than 6% per annum. So the value of your home will have been increasing at a greater speed than the charge against it. So
you'd still have to get that 6% back, you'd have to sell your house, wouldn't you?
You would always in order. The way equity release works is, well, unfortunately, there isn't just one way, but the way you're talking about is you get a loan of a lump sum. Let us say you get a loan of £20,000. So you get a loan of £20,000. That's yours, and you don't pay it back. What you do is the organisation puts a charge against the property so that when the property changes hands, for whatever reason, they get their £20,000. But you then pay the interest on that loan. You're telling me you were told 6%. So you would have to pay the 6% interest charge on a £20,000 loan until such time as the house was sold and they got their money back. There was no longer a loan, no longer a need for the interest rate. So that would be one way. The other way is to take out a percentage, in other words, to sell them a percentage of your home, and they get their benefit in terms of the value of the home increasing.
Yeah.
So they take 20,000 quid against £100,000 property, and in 20 years' time, when the house is sold, it's worth X thousand.
Yeah, that sounds. That sounds vastly superior.
Well, yes, but what you have to remember with those is that they will have a minimum. So they will say, we want a minimum of 4% interest that will be charged against the value of the property, or we want 6% and we get that whatever.
Oh, so the minimum's on, is it?
But, well, it depends. It depends on the scheme. There are a variety. One is...
The way you say it then, if I agree to do a deal on this house that I've got here, then... that's what I was thinking, really, what it was all about. That was my interpretation of what I thought it was all about. Well, in other words, say this house now is worth 150,000 and I want to release 30% of it, and they say, you're right, £45,000 is what we'll get. Here's your £45,000.
Yeah.
And then, as the years go by and this house becomes empty, both the people, my wife and myself, die off, then when the house is handed over to my offsprings or sold, then they get the percentage back of the house when it's sold, and I don't pay anything back. I get me 45,000. When the house is released to the market, they get their money back, plus whatever it's made, the house.
Quite possibly, but they demand a minimum of a lower
if
percentage.
That house becomes, exaggerate 100,000, which it could be in the where things are going, then that minimum that you're talking about becomes the all-important part, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And you can find that the equity, when you do finally snuff it in 20 years' time or whenever, the equity has reduced to zero because the interest has been eroding the equity that you didn't sell.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's no scheme whereby they want, like this. Basically, it's the same conversation that I started with, isn't it?
But John, there isn't.
They want the 6%.
But I can't imagine anybody. I mean, if you find them, do let me know, because I'll be onto them straight away. But I don't know anyone that lends money for nothing.
No, but they're not getting nothing.
No, indeed, that's what I'm saying. Don't be surprised.
They're getting whatever happens to the house. And surely that's their part of the bargain as well.
Well, yes, but they're not prepared to take the risk. What they won't do is say, we will lend you a third of the value of the house, and then, come the sale, we'll take a third, whatever the value, because they're not prepared...
A third plus whatever it's made, or vice versa.
Well, yes, they will, but what they won't do is say, we'll take a third, which might be less, in the unlikely event that over the long term the house value goes down. Well, they're not going to gamble. They're not gamblers. They're not going to gamble.
That's a perfect sense. You would consider it if it was like that, wouldn't you? Because
it would be one. It would be one of the things to consider.
Still have 2/3 of the house at the market price.
But the usual method is the one you referred to first of all, and that is what you effectively do is you borrow 20,000 and you pay back 6% per annum forever, and if you get behind, then you run the risk of losing your home.
Because at the moment, if it was carrying on the way it is, you'd very soon
well, John,
away your 6%.
I mean, don't worry about it. The housing market is down at the moment, but
it will be back.
It can't be anything else because it's supply and demand. There are more people want homes that have them, and as long as that is the case, they will increase in value long term. Right. Good on you, John.
I'm just going outside now to sweep the crisp packets out.
Well, apparently, according to Tidy Britain Group, you're the only one in Wigan doing it. Good on you, mate.
This is the Northwest's biggest sports station. This is BBC Radio Manchester.
It's Carling Cup time tonight, and our sides are a long way from home. You can hear live reports on Wigan's trip to Ipswich in the third round.
And it's a goal! Zaki pulls it past the goalkeeper. Hull City 0, Wigan Athletic 3.
Manchester City are at Brighton in round 2, looking to continue their goals habit.
Ball runs loose, and it goes! And it's Gelson Fernandez who puts in number 6.
That's Wigan at Ipswich and City at Brighton in the Carling Cup.
The all-new Manchester Sports. Tonight from 7, BBC Radio Manchester.
44 taxis have been taken out of service in Edinburgh. Again, black cabs. Yeah, there have been 8 fires reported in taxis in London since July this year. A further 47 cabs have had their licences suspended in Manchester and Luton. The manufacturers, the London Taxi International, who are based in Coventry, say they've produced about 5,500 of these, but only the first 1,000 are thought to be at risk of the fault, which is causing the problem. So that's made me feel better. I don't know about you. John in Droylsden. Hiya, John.
Yeah, well, Alan, this equity release,
Yes.
I did mine some 3 months ago.
Oh, excellent, yeah. Well,
And now we're talking about equity release and not buyback.
yeah, I know that I'm aware of the difference. Go on.
Yeah, I know. I thought you were a bit off-putting when you're putting people down, but I found mine to be very good. Done it through a big company.
Yeah.
It's done through a solicitor.
Mm-hmm. I mean, are you prepared to tell us the details?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's have
Well, just roundabout figures. That I owed something like £7,000 left on my mortgage. I am now retired. I was finding difficulty to be able to meet that amount of money every month.
Yeah.
I went on check with relief. They've paid that off.
Mm-hmm.
They've given me some extra money as well.
Yeah.
And then they've done the scheme, and it could be 28 years before it gets back to the amount of what my house is at the moment. 28 years. Now, somebody's pushing nearly 70. And 28 years, I won't be bothered.
The issue comes to light when, okay, let us say you're 99 years of age, where you're going to live.
Yeah, sure.
So
I don't. Well, the thing is, they actually say until your death. What they've calculated is the amount of this 6%, as a chap before was saying.
Yes.
Will take 28 years in my case.
To erode the value
until
of the
we erode
property.
that amount of money.
but
I know in 28 years' time, I've got a house which is all brick. It's not going to fall down.
And it's worth
in a
nothing.
nice area. It's definitely going to go up. The building trade will come back next year. I'm pretty sure of it. I used to be in the building trade.
Well, yes, in the long term, as we were just saying with your predecessor of the same name, that yes, the property prices will continue to rise in the longer term. But there are a couple of questions. I don't know whether you asked these, and I don't want to scare you at all, but what happens if you don't... Well, what happens if the value of your property did reduce? So let us say in 15 years' time, for some reason we don't know, the housing market falls to bits and the value of your home is reduced by 50% overnight. What happens in that circumstance? Because the equity in the property, of course, which is 100% of your property, but the equity in your property is then considerably less and not enough to meet the bill at the end of the 28 years.
Yeah, well, they actually say that it's you live there rent-free until the day you die, basically. And it's worked out over 28 years, so...
Who has the responsibility to maintain the property?
I do.
You do. So imagine the situation in 10 years' time if you have to have a new roof.
I have to pay for it.
How will you get the money? You've got nothing to borrow against. You've lent your house.
Sure.
So how will you... So it's
the same thing applies. If in 10 years' time, say I'm only a third of the way through that amount of money...
Yes.
I could either, they do allow you, I think it's something like 1,500 to 2,000 a year, you can borrow against it if you do need something like that.
But only if the value is there.
Only if the value is there, of course.
That's where the difficulties arise. And that's why, I mean, you sound like you've gone all the way through it and you know...
I'm very happy with it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But those are the kind of questions, and it's good to demonstrate them, but those are the kinds of questions that people must ask themselves and ask of the people they're attempting to do the deal with, because those are crucial. I mean, there are so many different things. I'm also not sure, perhaps given that your research appears to have been thorough, I'm not sure what the rules are in terms of if you had to go into care.
Yeah, it is covered in it that if you have to go into care, and the house has to be sold, and obviously, if I've gone into care, I'm going to be at that state and not bothered about the roof. I'm going to be in some...
Well, you won't be bothered about the roof, that's for absolute certain.
Sure.
But you might be bothered about having some say in where you are looked after and how much that costs, because of course...
the idea is, look, my house increased from 12 years ago, it was £35,000 I paid for it.
Yeah.
I've had it valued now £155,000. Just before this, 3 months ago, so it's just on the board with everything starting to go down.
Yeah.
So I've got a big equity there. So if in 10 years' time, I can still sell my house, and then we share the
absolutely, yeah.
between us.
They are divided according to the money
left,
you owe to them, which is the loan plus the interest, and the rest is yours.
Yeah.
And of course, if you go into care, the same will apply. The difficulty arises if you have to go into care is the agreement and how much of that equity is yours, how much of it is theirs, and how that relates into the fees you will be required to pay for the care that you get. And it gets complicated then, but it's not an insurmountable complication, but it is one.
Yeah, well, like I'm saying, the thing is, I still will have, and I maintain in 30 years' time, my house won't be worth 150,000 by then, or 155. It's probably going to be £100,000 on top of that, maybe even more.
If you've maintained it properly, yes.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I'm, very house proud, so I think I will do. I mean, it's working in my bathroom now.
John, you're house proud, but you're also knocking on a bit, mate. The top of ladders looks a lot worse.
Oh, no, I don't do that.
Every decade.
That's down to one of my family.
All right, mate. Well, good on you. Cheers, mate. Thank you for the explanation. Thank you. I know others that have gone through the scheme. I indeed find it absolutely beneficial, but it is always wise if you're considering any kind of charge against your property, then frankly you need advice. And as I say, Shelter do it, the Citizens Advice Bureau do it, a variety of housing advisory agencies and others do it. Check before you move. It's the only way. It's 1:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Michelle Adamson.
35 black cabs have been taken off the streets of Manchester over fears they might spontaneously catch fire. The Transport Secretary and Bolton West MP Ruth Kelly's been given a standing ovation at the Labour conference in Manchester for a speech in which she explained why she was leaving government. She said her decision was not taken lightly, but it was time to start putting her family first. A court has heard how a man living in Manchester was an important member of Al-Qaeda who had a terrorist contacts book. And Manchester's weather mostly dry this afternoon, some sunny spells, highs of 17 Celsius.
And can I just say, in response to an email earlier and to the hard of hearing, it's black cabs taken off the street of Manchester, not black cats.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Well, if you're using the trains and you're heading from Manchester Piccadilly towards London Euston, be aware that delays of up to 50 minutes can be expected on Virgin train services because of problems with a broken down freight train in the Nuneaton area. Elsewhere on the roads now, the M67 eastbound, one lane's closed off on the entry and exit slip at Junction 3 at Hyde whilst grass cutting work takes place until around about 4:30 this afternoon. The inside lane of the two on the entry and exit slip roads are closed off for the moment. And if you're heading around the Weast area of Greater Manchester, Stott Lane still closed in both directions whilst resurfacing work continues between Eccles Old Road and Meadowgate Road. And if you can update me further, call in this afternoon on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
2020 traffic means you get an update every 20 minutes through the day.
Ruth Kelly says, according to Terry and Tilsley, that she's only been able to do a job until now with the support of her husband and family. I've heard some of her speeches and now understand that her kids must have helped in writing them. I do hope she's leaving her job, that because she's leaving her job, she won't have to go on to benefits. Well, I suspect she won't have to go on to benefits. I suspect the pension for an MP of some 11 years standing, I think it is, and indeed a minister for 7 years, a full cabinet member for 5 years. I think she should be okay. She should be okay. And Bill in Stockport says, your interview with Ruth Kelly yesterday about the congestion charge, could we hear that again, he says. Now, I suspect the reason he's asking is because we have been talking about the congestion charge for an age, it seems to me. I think I first heard it when I was 2. But it might not be quite that long, but it does feel like it sometimes. We've been talking about the congestion charge for a long time, and as I've understood it thus far, the idea is that the government will lend us a chunk of money, about give us about £1.5 billion, which will be spent on improvements in public transport. And then once those are completed or very much underway, they will then allow us to borrow another $1.5 billion, and the repayments of that loan will be funded by a congestion charge and all the complexities of that. What I hadn't grasped, and I know the information is out there, because my colleagues who are experts in this have told me so, but what I hadn't grasped was that it wasn't cut and dried. If you vote no in the referendum in December, if you vote no, then it's dead, face down in the water, and the government doesn't give us that $1.5 billion. The presumption from that was, if you vote yes, then the government does give us that $1.5 billion. Seems that's not how it is.
So if we vote yes, we still might not get it?
Well, that needs to be made on the basis of all of the evidence. So it's not the only hurdle that needs to be passed. But obviously it's important.
What you just said was if we vote yes,
is a very important one.
But what you just seemed to say was if we vote yes, it doesn't necessarily mean that congestion charge will happen.
Well, Greater Manchester got programme entry, which is the first stage along that road.
Well, that question's quite important, isn't it? It doesn't need a long answer.
I'm being very clear about it.
Well, clearer would be yes or no, would be a lot clearer. Yes.
Yeah. It's the first
yes, it does mean that, or no, it doesn't.
First hurdle passed.
First hurdle passed.
First hurdle passed.
They might fall at the second.
Well, we'll see what the people of Greater Manchester say, and there's detail to be done. There are more stages. But
they might fall at the second hurdle.
Well, you know, I can't anticipate that, or I'd be taken to court because it would look as if I'd prejudged the conclusion.
I'm not asking you to judge it. I'm asking you whether the options are there. You're telling me about the referendum. You're not prejudging that merely by saying we're having one.
I can't prejudge what the people of Greater Manchester are going to say.
And you might say, and they might say yes, they might say no. But if they say yes, they then go to another hurdle.
I couldn't be clearer. There is another hurdle to jump.
I couldn't be clearer, she said. Well, frankly, I think she could have been. I think it could have been a lot clearer, but I did deduce from that this is the process. If Greater Manchester, well, without wanting to go into the arithmetic of it, but in simple terms, if 7 local authorities in Greater Manchester, in 7 of their referendums, say yes, then Manchester then has the exclusive right, Greater Manchester has the exclusive right to apply for the $1.5 billion. No, apply for the $1.5 billion. It is an exclusive right. The government has $2 billion, more or less, to spend over the next decade, and $1.5 billion of that is earmarked for Greater Manchester. If Greater Manchester votes yes to the whole package, including the congestion charge. But that doesn't mean they get the money. They then have to put in a bid for that money, and the government reserves the right to say yay or nay to that bid. So voting yes to the congestion charge package doesn't mean that it will happen. It just means that Manchester will be the only people bidding for that $1.5 billion. The only group. But that doesn't mean, it's not a competition. It doesn't mean they'll get it just because they're the only ones applying for it. If, when the government looks at it, and it won't be Ruth Kelly by then, it'll be some other poor soul. But once the referendum result is in, if the answer is yes, Greater Manchester Authority will then have to put together a bid to convince the government to go ahead and give us the money. Well, I make no further comment than that, other than to say, I just thought it was cut and dried. 0161228 2255. Somebody sends me an email purporting to be called Kelly. I can take the almost daily abuse both in the House and at the hands of the right-wing press, but not from some bloody short, fat, red-headed bloke from Warrington. After our chat yesterday, I suddenly realised I should spend more time with my family. P.S. I wouldn't have minded if it had been Chris Evans, but Beswick? Thank you for that. I'm sure you think it's art. Gordon says the term full of bull stuff springs to mind. I wonder what he could possibly mean by that. And Guy says, Alan, I can't believe you said cabs and not cats. As a ginger Tom, you must have been jumping through hoops. No, I like cats. Unfortunately, if they'd have said that all the black dogs have been taken off the streets of Manchester, I wouldn't have jumped through hoops. But I would have given a little quiet cheer, because it's no great loss. The outgoing Transport Secretary, as we must now call her, Ruth Kelly, is denying suggestions she's been part of a plot to get rid of Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown, however, has not been denying being part of a plot to get rid of Ruth Kelly. And neither am I. The mother of four is... that's Ruth Kelly, not Gordon Brown. The mother of four is standing down from the cabinet saying she's putting her family first. She says the Prime Minister is a towering figure. But she's rejecting claims that she's going because she's unhappy with the direction of the government. Well, we all know what we believe when people speak, don't we? We do. 0161 228 2255 if you used to join us. The other fella that wriggled a little bit was Tony Lloyd, another former minister. Tony Lloyd, MP for Central Manchester. And I asked him whether he thought it was a good idea, whether he thought it was good for Manchester. Well, no, I'll be more accurate. What I actually asked him was the people who have now bought Manchester City Football Club, it is said, are interested in buying Eastlands, the whole site where the casino was going to be and everything else. And I asked him if he thought it was a good idea for Manchester City Council to sell Eastlands to the new owners of Manchester City Football Club. And he didn't say yes, and he didn't say no, did Tony Lloyd. He's usually a fairly direct individual. He didn't say it was a good idea or a bad idea. He talked about the jobs that could be created in that area, and if they can create those jobs, then that'll be absolutely fantastic, and all sorts of other things. But he didn't say it was a good idea, and he didn't say it was a bad idea. I actually said to him, well, if Manchester City Council do sell Eastlands to the... if you do sell Eastlands to the people who are buying it, then, well, would it be like selling a Canaletto? And he says, And that was what he said. That's it. Beswick, you plonker. You said yesterday that you might put yourself forward for the Mayor of Manchester. Who the hell do you think you are? You're only a 2-bit radio presenter, and you... I don't understand that. You don't... Oh, that should say don't, I'm sorry. You don't even come from Manchester. You were born and bred in Warrington, Cheshire. Manchester doesn't want a mayor who was brought up in an area closer to Liverpool than Manchester. Well, that would be up to Manchester, wouldn't it, Rick? In Bolton, you won't even get a say, so don't worry about it. Unless, of course, it was a Greater Manchester mayor that was up for grabs. And who was it? It was the guy from the research organisation into cities who said that if Manchester votes no to the congestion charge, then Greater Manchester needs to have an elected mayor. Presumably, if we can't get our own way one way, we'll try and get it another. Would you like an elected mayor for Greater Manchester, replacing all the local authorities, not the personnel that work for them, but replacing the concept of local authorities with a sort of regional government for Greater Manchester, headed by an elected mayor? I'm not altogether sure who would be a viable proposition. Who would there be? I said me, just to prove how crazy it would be. I have no interest in politics of any kind and wouldn't stand for election in any way, shape or form, if only because I wouldn't get in. But one or two people suggested that Tony Wilson might be a good idea. Well, he couldn't do any worse than others have done, even though he's dead. But... Who now that he has gone, who would you have? Do you like the idea? I mean, at the moment, we've got 10 leaders of local authorities, haven't we? We've got each of the local authorities have got... I'm not going to list them all, it's a nightmare. But each of the local authorities have got a different leader. Should Greater Manchester, like London, they've got Boris Johnson, previously Ken Livingstone, of course. Should Manchester have one region... It's been tried before, of course, in terms of the Greater Manchester Council all those years ago. But it didn't work out. People weren't happy with it, so it's moved on somewhat. But do you think we should have that? 0161 228 2255. Neil in Bebbington. I'm not sure about the grace of this, but no matter, says, I'm pretty sad at the moment over Ruth Kelly stepping down. I've always had the odds for her. Well, indeed, you must make your judgments in any way you can, say I. 0161 228 2255. If you wish. Yes. Indeed. I don't know what one says to that, really. If you've got the hots for Ruth Kelly. I'm sure to some people she's a very attractive individual. Lovely. No, I'm not. I'm not going that way. It's too uncomfortable by far. There's a piece today in the Independent. It's a columnist, so it's not necessarily a report as such. It's just an economist mouthing off a bit like I do here, really, just speaking their mind. And well, how can I criticise anyone for that in the circumstances? But the columnist says that the downfall, her word, not mine, the downfall of Paul Gascoigne shames us all. That's the phrase she chooses to use. The downfall of Paul Gascoigne shames us all. And what I think she means is that we're not very good at looking after people. It's Janet Street Porter. I know, strange lady. Gazza's slide into despair shames us all. Two well-known men, both addicts, make the headlines. George Michael is picked up by the police yet again for allegedly cruising in a public toilet near his North London home. He was reportedly caught with crack cocaine and was let off with a caution. And once again, George asks his fans to forgive him. Why? Frankly, if he wants to spend his time hanging around in toilets and the bushes of Hampstead smoking crack, says Janet Street Porter, as far as I'm concerned, he can go right ahead, I don't care. Well, that's fine. George has fled the country in a private jet, but the decline of Paul Gascoigne won't be so easily dealt with. You see, it's interesting, isn't it? He was back in the news last weekend following another 48-hour bender in which he was arrested for brawling with a photographer. Gazza has been and out of rehab countless times. Today, if he's not been sectioned again, he'll be slumped in a room drinking himself to death like that other football superstar George Best did. For all Gordon Brown waffles on about Britishness and celebrating it with a special day, Gazza's plight brings home to us that being lauded as a sporting hero one year doesn't mean you won't be seen as a laughingstock the next. If Gazza kills himself, I, says Janet Street Porter, will feel responsible. Yes, I know you can't make addicts clean up unless they want to. I know Gazza's mental problems are such that without football he cannot see life is worth living. Since he had a hip replacement last year and was told his footballing days were over, he's plunged into a spiral of depression. Quite simply, he doesn't know how to do anything else. And she makes a number of points following on from that. But all of them look back at his life, and all of those points say, well, hang on. We as a society, we're very, very fickle with our heroes, very fickle indeed. We say, well, OK, you're a hero, that's fantastic, Georgie. Oh, George Best, you're absolutely brilliant. Yeah, OK, you're brilliant. Fantastic, George, fantastic. And then suddenly you're nobody. Suddenly you're out the frame. Suddenly you are nothing. And in the case of Paul Gascoigne, for a while afterwards, when he used to be a mate with Danny Baker and the aforementioned Chris Evans, and they all used to go on the Raz and on the Wild around London's West End. Usually, I'm told, because he is a generous bloke, usually with Chris Evans picking up the bill. Yeah, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But now, he's a tragedy, an absolute tragedy. And our society doesn't have the equipment to deal with that. We don't. We are rubbish as a society, we're brilliant with the National Health Service at getting rid of, giving him the hip replacement. We can change your heart, we can do all of that. But we as a society are absolutely rubbish at dealing with those people who, frankly, are inadequate emotionally, mentally. We are just absolutely rubbish at it. And part of the reason is that we who are not mentally ill are ashamed of those that are. It's quite extraordinary. If you say to somebody, "Oh yeah, I've been in hospital, what for?" "Oh, I've had a kidney replacement." Yeah, I've had a kidney transplant. I've had a dose of the pox. It doesn't matter what you've been ill with. It doesn't matter what you've been ill with. Heart disease, lung disease, brittle bone disease, the clap. It doesn't matter what you've had. It's perfectly acceptable. Don't worry, it could happen to anyone. If you say you've got depression, got a little bit of schizophrenia, it's different. It's absolutely different. You are marked for life. Doesn't matter what other illness you've got. If you've got a mental illness, you are marked for life. Absolutely extraordinary. And scary, really, because a substantial proportion of us are that way round. A substantial proportion. 1 in 4, would you believe? 1 in 4 people will have some contact with mental illness. It's just normal. Just gone 20 to 2. BBC Radio Manchester News headlines. Michelle Adams.
A Roman Catholic school in Bury has banned pupils from receiving the new vaccine against cervical cancer on its premises. A court's heard how a man living in Manchester was an important member of Al-Qaeda who had a terrorist contacts book. Unimaginably cruel, that's how the RSPCA have described youths who beat 2 deer to death in Swinton. And Manchester's weather, dry with sunny spells this afternoon, highs of 17 Celsius.
Why did you kill him? Because meat's too dear.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
If you're using the M67 heading eastbound, watch out for closures on the entry and exit slip roads whilst grass cutting takes place. Junction 3 at Hyde. Again, that's heading away from Manchester. And if you're using the M61, 1 lane's down because of roadworks between 4 Farnworth and 5 West Horton. The outside lane of the 3 that's closed, but hopefully it should all be finished that work by around about 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. And let's take a quick look to the trains now. And if you're using Virgin Trains and you're heading towards London Euston from Manchester Piccadilly, delays up to 50 minutes can be expected because of a signalling problem and an earlier broken down freight train at Nuneaton. The freight train has been removed, but signalling problems have now developed in the same area. Don't forget, if you can update me further, call in. The number's 0161 244 4951. I'm Carla Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Mark Elliott.
Well, Lancashire had a good morning on the opening day of their last county championship match of the season, needing 7 points from the game against Somerset at Taunton to secure top-flight status. They took 5 wickets. The afternoon session's underway, and Chris Malaban can bring us the latest.
The 6th wicket has just gone here at Taunton. Lancashire striking again, and it's Oliver Newby who's improved his tally to 3, dismissing Craig Kieswetter, caught behind by Luke Sutton for 9, as Kieswetter attempted to pull away a short delivery from Newby. 106 for 6, Somerset. Peter Trigo carrying home hopes. He's on 28, and with him South African Alfonso Thomas on 1. But it's been Lancashire's day so far, ever since Stuart Law won the toss and asked Somerset to have first use of a pitch which is more than tinged with green grass. Lancashire will fancy their chances of polishing off Somerset long before the tea interval here, and will then give their batsmen the opportunity to try and bat themselves into a good position in the match. Batsmen this struggle this season so far for Lancashire, though, and whether they can cope on this pitch remains to be seen. Lancashire, though, doing everything right at the moment. They've banked 2 points already. Somerset 109 for 6.
And you can hear updates from Chris throughout the afternoon here on BBC Radio Manchester. And if you want ball-by-ball commentary, that's available online at bbc.co.uk/Manchester. On to football, and the Manchester City manager Mark Hughes has reacted to Arsene Wenger's comments regarding the recent takeover at Eastlands. The Arsenal boss said he had no rational answer as to why the Abu Dhabi United group wanted to buy the Blues, and he questioned the motives of the new owner.
I think the comments from Arsene obviously were maybe extracted from their club magazine, and maybe that went to print a couple of weeks back, and obviously there's been changes even since then. So it's nice that he has such a concern for what's happening at our club. I wouldn't say I have as much concern about what's happening at his, but I'll just focus on my job.
Meanwhile, City make the long trip to Brighton for tonight's second-round Carling Cup tie. You can hear the build-up and commentary in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7. We'll also have live updates from Portman Road, where Wigan play Ipswich in the third round. Michael Owen has called on the Newcastle United players to lift their game by an extra 5 to 10% following the departure of Kevin Keegan and a run of 3 successive defeats. The captain says it's time to move on, starting with tonight's League Cup tie against the holders Tottenham. Lance Armstrong will make his professional cycling comeback at next year's Tour Down Under. That's been confirmed by race organisers. The American, who retired after winning a 7th Tour de France title in 2005, is returning to the sport and hopes to raise awareness of cancer research and treatment. Well, meanwhile, Britain's most successful Olympic cyclist, Chris Hoy, says he'd be mad not to keep going until the 2012 Games in London. Hoy, who lives in Salford, won 3 golds in Beijing. He's told BBC Radio Manchester today that as long as he's enjoying it, he'll keep going.
I've not really done any training at all yet since I got back, but, I definitely plan to continue on to London. I think I'd be mad not to. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to compete at a home Olympics. So, yeah, 4 more years. I enjoy everything about my training. It's not just about the winning gold medals. It's about the day-to-day I still enjoy. So if you enjoy it, then there's no reason, as long as you're healthy and not injured, there's no reason why you can't keep going.
On to rugby union, and the tries will come. That's the view of Sale's second-row forward Chris Jones. The Sharks have won their first 3 games of the season, but have scored just 1 try through Charlie Hodgson at Newcastle. Sale faced Gloucester at Edgeley Park on Friday night, and Jones is hoping that the floodgates will open.
We can score tries, we know that, but as a forward, we know the quality we've got through the pack and through the backs. So I think the tries will come. Positives. Well, we've had a clean sheet so far. We're not overly worried, but hopefully we can start getting a couple of points on the score sheet at the weekend.
And finally, for now, Australia could play New Zealand at Twickenham if ambitious plans come to fruition. The Australian Rugby Union's confirmed it's looking to stage matches outside the Oceania region.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
There's Lancashire cricket throughout the afternoon. Then tonight it's Carling Cup football with Manchester City at Brighton and Wigan at Ipswich, all from 7.
BBC Radio Manchester.
David poses a question. I wonder if Ruth Kelly's resignation has anything to do with the government backing for the anti-cervical cancer jab for young girls. The Ruth is a devout Roman Catholic. Well, she is indeed a devout Roman Catholic, and she did indeed abstain from the vote to which you refer. But I don't think the two are connected, frankly. I don't think the two are connected because abstention is quite an important... I mean, it's not like if you and me say, I'm not bothering to vote or whatever. Abstention in a vote of that ilk is something quite not done lightly. So I think by doing that, she has had her say. I don't think that the two are connected. One can never know what's going on inside the head of another, of course, so it might be, but I suspect not. Ian in Northwich, I don't know what's going on in your head either. Beswick, you can't be serious when you say the current Doctor Who is good. The current Doctor Who is good. It's awful. Not a patch on the classic Pertwee Baker era. The music is over dramatic and too loud so that you can't hear the dialogue, and Tennant's constant gurning and overacting is annoying. Eccleston at least was better. Utter rubbish, says Ian in Northwich. I don't recall talking about Doctor Who, frankly. It doesn't bother me much. It's all right, it's good, I quite like it. I watch it when it's on, but frankly, it's just a bit of stuff on the telly, innit? I don't get excited about it, why would I?
Nice to see you.
Oh, hey up.
Strictly Come Dancing is back.
There was magic movement in those hips.
Best first dance I have ever seen.
Our first couple have already gone home.
Phil and Flavia.
A few mistakes, but I enjoyed it.
And the remaining 15 are feeling the heat on the dance floor. Strictly Come Dancing continues Saturday at 6:45 on BBC One.
No names, no pack drill, no indication, no anything, but simply to say, hi Alan, your comments re mental health are perfectly on the ball. I had a mental health issue a few years ago, time in hospital, counselling, even ECT. I'm almost out the other side of it now. It takes a long, long time. A long time. But, I mean, so do many other illnesses. The thing I find extraordinary about mental illness, the thing I can't quite get my head round about mental illness, is not the length of time it takes to recover, because it can take a very, very long time. But that's the same with many other conditions, isn't it? We talk, I mean, wrongly, I'll grant you, but we talk about heroism for people who are suffering from cancer. I mean, it drives me mad that we do, but we do. We talk about heroism. We talk, oh, well, yeah, you've got to fight it, and all that other absolute patronising nonsense. But that's what they say. They don't talk about such heroic terms of someone who's got a mental illness. Oh, no, no, no. They, for a start, pretend they haven't. No, that's what they do. They pretend they haven't. I mean, obviously the patients sometimes pretend they haven't as well, but if your partner, your child, your parent has got a mental illness, apart from dementia's getting a better press than it ever did, although, of course, the illness is still absolutely awful, but dementia gets a much better press now. But any other mental illness, and I'm sorry, you are just beyond the pale. It's an illness we will not tolerate. Employers are absolutely bloody awful at it. They have such prejudices. You apply for a job, and it's one of those that asks you about your health, and you say, well, yes, I have had a spell in hospital. I was in the psychiatric unit of such and such a hospital. You're screwed. You ain't going to get the job. You are screwed. Most interviewees in such position would fail. They wouldn't get the job. Why? Well, the employer thinks they're balmy. They're doolally. Oh, we don't want them on the premises. They could run amok with an axe, which, of course, is absolute nonsense. But that is what that's what goes on in their heads when they see that on the application form, and indeed when they interview you. And it is discriminatory, and it is, frankly, absolutely ghastly. And as one of our correspondents just said then, think about it. How many people do sponsored runs for mental illness? Well, exactly. None. Why? Because it's not popular. Because it's not one of those sexy subjects. Indeed, it is the exact opposite. It's ghastly. As indeed is the sentence handed down to the woman in the paper. Well, it was reported in the paper today. I don't know. I can see why they've handed down such a large sentence, but I mean, she murdered a kid. That's it. She murdered a kid. But it's that Daily Mail front page. Even they, and they're all hang 'em and flog 'em, the Daily Mail, as you know. But front page, yesterday her husband branded her evil. But should this mother, who drowned her 4-year-old cerebral palsy daughter, have been jailed for life? Question asked. Front page of the Daily Mail. Evil mother killed my little princess, says the child's father. And yeah, she did, and yes, she was his princess. Father's fury at wife who couldn't accept the child's disability. A mother who drowned her disabled daughter because she was ashamed of her was yesterday branded evil by her devastated husband. Joanne Hill killed 4-year-old Naomi, who had a mild form of cerebral palsy, after failing to persuade her husband Simon to have the girl adopted. The 32-year-old advertising saleswoman, a depressive alcoholic, claimed her crime was manslaughter due to diminished responsibility, but a jury took less than 90 minutes to decide it was murder. It wasn't a mercy killing, it was a conscience killing. Now, we all have to take some of the blame for that. No, we weren't involved, of course we weren't. And no, I offer no sympathy or any other thing to the woman who committed the act. I feel for her, I feel for her mental condition and state and all the rest of it. But a child with a disability is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, nor yet is it anything to be proud of. It's just a child. It's just a child. Full stop. That's it. Have you got a child? Yes, I have. What sort is it? It's a cripple. No, that's not the answer. What sort is it? It's a boy or a girl. That's it. But again, we're back on this theme. Society is cruel about disability, be it mental or physical. Society is absolutely cruel about it. Like, in my day, you were told not to look. Not to look. Oh, look away. Look away. Something horrible. You might catch it. You never know. But we did, didn't we? That's what we were like. Hopefully we are a little better informed than that now. But we still have the situation. Put yourself in the woman's position. There is no reason on this earth why a parent should be ashamed of having a child with cerebral palsy. No reason on this earth why a person should be ashamed. But shame is not... It's not a personal, unique to the individual emotion. Shame is the result of somebody's measure against the rest of us. You can't be ashamed of something unless you feel it is a bad thing. You will only feel it is a bad thing if other people demonstrate to you. I don't mean on this individual occasion, but generally demonstrate to you that it's a bad thing. There she is, pregnant, having a kid, all the rest of it, looking forward to it. Out pops the kid, not long after they learn it's got cerebral palsy. In other words, it's not up to society's standard. And we create that impression. We, society generally, we together, by the way we treat people with disabilities, by the way we exclude them from things, by the way we are embarrassed by their presence, by the way we treat them as something not ordinary, by the way we have the weirdo Olympics, if you'll accept that term. Yeah, we have the Olympics, and then we have the Paralympics for the Crips. That's what we do. That's what we do. We segregate. We say, there you are, there's the Olympics, and now we're having this other one for these not quite all there people. That's what's going on. Now, I know the motivation of all that is to say, look, they're people too. They're entitled to their Olympics, blah, blah, blah. But the very acknowledgement of their difference. We don't acknowledge that they are part of our society, that they are you and me and everybody else. We say they are different. They are less than everybody else. People argue for I am differently abled, but we ain't got there yet. We ain't got there. We give them ramps to get upstairs if they're in wheelchairs. We give them things to lift them in and out of bed and all the rest of it. But we still shun them in society. Even now, talk to people who live in wheelchairs. Talk to them. And they will go into a shop with their partner, and the shop will completely ignore the person in the wheelchair. Not always, but will completely ignore them. They say, could I have a loaf of bread, please? And they'll turn to the person standing next to the wheelchair. Even though the person in the wheelchair did the question, they'll turn to the person standing next to the wheelchair and say, sliced or unsliced? Like as if the person asking for the loaf of bread, because they're in a wheelchair, they've just learnt that. That's the only phrase they know. They were taught it. They learnt it, just became they came in. Absolutely crazy. But that's what we do. That's what we do. And that distinction between we the able-bodied and the other lot, that segregation, that, well, I'm a proper person and you're not quite, or you look at the parent and you say, oh, you poor thing. You poor thing. You could have got a proper child and you got this crip. Oh, you poor thing. By doing that, by making that distinction, look, it would have been better for you had you got a good one, wouldn't it? By doing that, we put in that woman's mind that she has failed as a parent by having a less than adequate child. Keep your legs covered up. I don't want anyone to know that you've got cerebral palsy. don't speak in public, because I don't want anyone to know, of my failure. By creating that position where I'm ashamed of my child, the next step, it's a long, and then a lot more steps as well, but add to that her own inadequacies and she ends up killing the kid. We all stand in the dock on that one. See you tomorrow.
There's Carling Cup football tonight. Reports on Wigan at Ipswich and commentary.